Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today's guest is Jeff Cedar, and he is the founder of Equine Biomechanics and Exercise Physiology, also known as EQB. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Jeff, so just to get us kicked off here, first things first, how did you get involved in the equine industry? Like, where did all that start for you?
I took a ride on a blind date at a rental stable with a girl one day in May when I was about 27. And instead of falling in love with the girl, I fell in love with the horse. And I became obsessed with horses. Taking lessons, and ended up buying a horse and then a farm. And doing my thesis, I was at a joint MBA, JD, law and business degrees at Harvard, and before they even had the formal program. And I did my thesis on the horse racing statute and laws in Massachusetts. I was riding every day. I wanted to find a way to be outside and be with horses, and it looked like a way I could earn a living, because horse racing, 99% of the people were losing money. They were doing it the way they did for 300 years. So I can bring the management. I was pre-med before that at Harvard. I said, I can bring the modern management and science to horse racing, and maybe I can make some money and democratize it.
I want to stick in those early days just a little bit longer, because I think this is fascinating. Like, what drew you to horses? When you were there, like, do you remember, like, what was the, like, you fall in love, and obviously you get deeper and deeper, but what was some of the fascination?
Well, along the way, it was fascinating. To begin with, I just always loved animals. I used to remember when I was like 10, looking out the window. I was supposed to be practicing my violin. I was looking out the window at a squirrel in a tree. And my mother came in and said, "Do you want to play with a squirrel?" And I said, "No, I want to be the squirrel." I had dogs, and I always loved animals. And then riding, I got really good at it. I was jumping 6-foot stone walls out, running around, and fox hunting and steeplechasing and stuff. And I had this foresight that I really loved. And, I don't know, people who don't know what have with animals, I don't know, but I had a bond. I just thought go right, and he did. We were just a bonded. And when I first had my own farm, I moved him to that farm instead of a rental stable. I put him in the stall, and I threw my arms up, and I said, "Pony, we're living together." And I wanted to be out. I originally got out of law school and business school. I took a job in Manhattan at Citicorp in international finance, and I was there for about 6 months, and it felt like I was always indoors. They had, in the Citicorp new building at that point, they had a mural that was like 3 stories high in their central atrium, which was the cafeteria of Pennsylvania farmland. And I was looking at it. Finally, I said, "What am I looking at? I could be living it." And I quit, and I went and rented a farm.
Whoa.
And then I started it. If I'd known how long it would take and how much it would cost, I would have never done it. Then I managed to get myself by accident in with the brand new science stuff. The United States Olympic team was just starting their sports medicine stuff to try and compete with East Germans and this and that. As a young lawyer, I got involved in that. And so I got to see all the technology that was being developed and thought of about training and selecting athletes. And I decided I can bring this to horse racing. I can do what I want with horses. And so I began. And then it was fascinating, because one of the first things I learned was the data didn't exist. I went around to ask experts, the best veterinarians and the luminaries in the fields, and people at MIT and doctors at Harvard, and they, everybody gave me answers, but it was all based on like ponies on treadmills at labs. They didn't know, and the equipment to get the data didn't exist. So if you put a human heart rate meter on a horse, it doesn't work right. It doesn't matter why. So I had to design my own chip and get it made by Hitachi, like before there were. But this is
what year is this roughly?
Before.
What year is this?
1977. It's like 20 years before.
That's why I'm over here thinking to myself, like, you're pioneering this stuff. This is early days.
20 years before. There were no PCs. There was nothing. I had to get chips made. Wow. I had to use defense contractor black box shit. I made the first heart rate meter that a jockey could carry that was accurate, and I found out that the leading equine cardiologists in the world had no clue what the heart rate of the racehorses were. They thought it was like 120 beats. It was twice that. And their resting rates were 25. And they could go from 25 to 120 when you walked in the stall without turning a hair. So not only did their hearts go twice as fast as they thought, because they were so big, they thought they didn't. They were more volatile. They were go up and down faster than anything a human could do.
Wow.
And then they had interval training for humans. And I found out that wasn't going to work because I did all the I had horses and pools with masks over their faces to catch the gases, to see this, that, and the other for VO2 max and all this training shit that was going on with humans. And you had to catch all the gases and then analyze them. So in the human, they have a big thing called a spirometer, which is like a big water heater, and you catch the gases. So we tried that, and it was full in like a second. And so we chained 2 of them together, and it filled wang, and we 3 of them together, and it was full instantly. And we said, so we got a weather balloon, so it was big enough to hold all the gases. And then we looked at each other and said, this is ridiculous. Why is the horse moving so much air? And if he is, why do we care about his lung capacity? Clearly something's going on that has nothing to do with oxygenating his blood. It's vastly beyond that. And it turned out they're cooling themselves by panting like a dog, not just by sweating. So they have lung capacities that are vastly beyond anything you could need for the race. They're born with it. And I learned a lot of other things. We looked at their heart. They were talking about, I'll try to be quick about it, but there were guys who listened to the hearts of horses, and there was a guy in Australia who took EKGs, and he measured between peaks on the EKG to do the mass of the heart. And they claimed the Secretariat had a massive heart when they did his autopsy, and he was 20 years old. So I looked at that. You know, I was a pretty good mechanic, too. I was a motorcycle mechanic and racing nut. And I looked at this thing, and I said, this is ridiculous. They are doing this with a little machine, with a little paper tape, in barns, in these places where the current's crappy and, vacillating all over the place. And the little motor that's running that tape is going faster or slower depending on the voltage. and they're measuring the distance between the peaks. I said, this is silly. So I said, let's do it directly with ultrasound. So then we tried doing it with ultrasound, and everything there. We had to invent the first portable ultrasound machine that could go into a stall with a horse. Should have patented. Now all the machines like that were modeled on our stuff. And then we had all these vets that tell us, how do you measure a heart? And we tried it, and it never gave us the same results. So finally we ended up on the other side of the horse where we could identify markers inside the horse with ultrasound, and we could get reproducible results that were accurate. And it changed the whole way they did echocardiography in horses. We had to invent the equipment, get the data, and then we did 10,000 horses over, or 12,000 horses over 10 years, and we found out, to a statistical absolute certainty that 99% of the really good horses had in the top 20% of the size, the thickness of the left ventricle in their heart. And it went on from there. And every time I would discover something, it was a thrill. Plus, when I finally got to do this, which was like 20 years later, right? The Kentucky Derby, you can only be once in your life as a 3-year-old horse. 20 horses qualify by winning the top races, this and that. They're out of what was a full crop of like 30,000. Most people may get in it once in their lifetime. I've had a horse or more than one that we bought as an unraced 2-year-old below auction prices almost every year. One year we had a whole court. We had 5 horses in the gate that we bought for people as babies. We've been second twice. We've won it once. Out of our program came the first Triple Crown winner in 37 years in 2015. So we've proven it. But it was always a thrill. And horse racing is thrilling. If you bet $2 on the horse, if you don't know anything about it, I guarantee it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Almost anybody. And if you've got all the investment in this technology and picking it and for me, it's always been a thrill. My first client I went to, he was a leading guy. I finally got a guy who was a big guy in the industry, and he had 200 horses, and he agreed to meet with me. And I gave him the whole spiel, and he said, I don't understand any of it. Make one recommendation. I said, you don't understand. It's a lot of things together. It's progress. He says, no, make one recommendation. So I said, okay, here it is. You've got a brand new sire you're trying to promote. You've got a colt by him. If that colt does, well in major races, you'll have a sire worth a lot of money. So I want you in a month. I want you to enter Nolan's Cat, named after his grandson, in the Belmont Stakes. And he burst out laughing. Belmont Stakes is the third of the race of the Triple Crown. It's a mile and a half. They almost never go a mile and a half in any other race in the United States. And this horse, he said, that horse has not won a race. He has not won a race. He said, he's slow. And I said, yeah, but he never slows down. And the thing about the other thing I had learned from the Olympics was about fatigue curves and swimming and other sports. in horse racing, when you see a horse passing everybody in the stretch and it looks like it's terrific, if it's on the dirt, he's just slowing down less than the others. They're all slowing down, and you can nail the rate they slow down. It's almost like a fingerprint to a logarithmic fatigue curve. And then you can extrapolate it out to see what the time would be on longer races. And this horse had a really flat fatigue curve, so he wasn't slowing down. I said, he's slow, but he doesn't slow down. But at the end of a mile and a half, he's going to be right up front with the best horses in the world. So the guy said, you're on. So he did it. And the night before in the racing forum, they had the analysis for the classic race and this and that. And they said, this horse has got a chance because blah, blah, and this trainer. And I said, and then there's the jokers and the idiots. And that, of course, we were one of those. They never.
Oh, come on.
Then the next day, okay, so I'm at the race, and the horse is in the gate, and the trainer, who's a famous trainer, is telling everybody, the press, it's not his fault the horse is here. It's a command performance, right? It's this moron here, me. So they come out of the gate, and, of course, he's dead last, and I'm ready to hide under the table, right? And he's trailing the field, and I'm getting the looks, right? And then about halfway through the race, he starts to speed up. He starts to catch score. He's not speeding up. Actually,
he's not speeding up. Everybody else is just slowing down, and they're all
and then about halfway through the race, it looks like he's catching up to the field. And then we're about three-quarters of the way, and he's passing horses like mad. And we get to the head of the stretch, and he's coming. And by the end of the race, if it had been another 2 strides, he'd have won the damn thing. He was third. So now he is placed in one of the most prestigious races in the world. They call it classic race. His sire is now no longer going to be laughed at. His first crop has produced a classic competitive horse. And just to prove it wasn't silly, he did it again in $1 million Louisiana Super Derby like a month later. So I got the job. And then I helped him out, and we got him low odds horses in the Kentucky Derby like 2 years in a row. Bang, bang, right? And then a guy called me up who was from Egypt who wanted to get into the sport. He was going to spend a lot of money. And he wanted to know if I could help him, and I said, you bet. And then he turned us loose, and we created a phenomenal record. We had, most people have 1 or 2 Grade 1 winners in a lifetime. We bought 20 in like 6 years, and we did it. They're all spending $1 million for the top horses. We were spending $40,000, $50,000, $100,000. And then we bought the dam of who became the Triple Crown winner. For $200,000, she got hurt, but it's $200,000, not $6 million, which is what they paid for the top broodmares of the most recent auction, right? And so it was just from there. It was a whirlwind. But then he was a brilliant guy and a passionate guy. But the Arab Spring came, and the Egyptian pound got devalued 50%. All his partners in the big businesses in Egypt, he lost them in the military, so he went bankrupt, and we lost him. And people thought we bankrupted him. He had invested $40 million, and we had turned it into $64 million in like 6 years. And that was before the Triple Crown winner, who was probably worth $50 to $100 million. But, anyway, we did it. So it's not a theory anymore. And I published in refereed major scientific veterinary journals massive amounts of data, these huge studies, 10,000 horses, 12, again and again, and nobody reads it. So it used to drive me crazy, and I finally said, you know what? Great. That means I will preserve my edge, right? Yeah. So what the hell? What do I went to an auction just recently, and there were horses. There were 11 of them went for $1 million, yearlings. And one of the guys who bought them was big in the industry. Says, "Well, there were 11 horses that went today for $1 million, and I know that only one of them is going to be any good. I hope it's mine." And I was thinking, God, he knows he's got a 9% chance. If I could give him I can give him a 30% chance, for average money, not for $1 million, for $40,000. But they don't, and I've proven it, and I've published on it, and they just don't, it's so insular and so tradition bound and so. Why do you think that is? You think it's just tradition, or the guys don't get the data? Is it these are people? They don't. It's a lot of it's because it's so much fun, and the social thing is fun, and they're showing off like buying a McLaren car for $1.5 million. They don't give a damn. They just want to win. If they have to buy 10 horses, they have to buy 10 horses at $1 million and get one that's really good, so they've lost their ass. They don't tell anybody that, right? They don't care as long as they got the good one. But that's not. But I do care. And the guys I had do care. So what I'm doing now is I'm bringing it in-house. Not going to do it.
Are you using like are you doing like a fractional model where people can get involved like on a fractional basis?
I haven't decided yet.
That?
I've got 3 offers of about an awful lot of money to create the stable, and I probably would bring in people as partners if they want to come along. Yes, I probably would do that. You can just to backtrack just a little. If you want to get into horse racing, there's a few things you really got to know. First of all, it's caveat emptor in spades. There are a million really nice guys who sound, even veterinarians, guys who sound like they're really knowledgeable, and they're awful. They're awful. And there's an awful lot of technology, guys selling technology and statistical this and that, and most of it is absolute garbage. So you really have to be careful. And you have to check references, and you can't just believe because they say they have the biomechanics, most of it's crap. That's number one. Because they didn't have what we had, which was 20 years and millions of dollars of private research. So that's number one. Number two is if you're only going to buy one horse, obviously it's a lottery ticket. A million things can go wrong, even if they're a great horse. If you're just trying to have fun, fine, buy one horse, about $40,000. Don't spend a lot more than that. And it'll cost you about $4,000 a month to train it with a good trainer. And if you don't get a good trainer, I don't care if they have secretariat. Most of the trainers cannot win major races, and they think it's because they don't have the horses, and that's not the reason. So you really need people who have done it, and you can find them, but you got to make the effort. The data's out there on the internet. And if you want to do it as a business, you need a stable. Then we can make the odds work for you. You need to have 20 horses or something.
So now I'm just trying to think about, like, okay, if somebody's a novice and they're getting kind of started in this, like, how do you, on the fractional side, or whether it's that, or whether it's even like just thinking about, how to get into the business, I feel like it can be a little bit intimidating. Like, go into that a little bit.
Oh, it is intimidating, and it should be, unfortunately. Well, you can do partnerships. Most of the partnerships are, the overhead of the people running the partnerships is so big, and your odds are not very good. So you may have a good time and they'll educate you, but you're unlikely to make money, even if the horse is successful. And then, so that's one way to educate yourself. Just start slow and don't expect to make money in the beginning. Another way is you just got to find the right people. And you should talk to us. We can find out, what do you want to spend? What do you want to do? This and that. And, we won't put you with people who will jerk you around.
Yeah.
And I know there's other good people out there, but most of them, what they don't have, there's good people out there, but what they don't have is what we have, is all that big data analytics on top of the traditional horsemanship. That's all right.
Man. Jeff, I got a funny story for you.
And they don't have a track record. They don't have a track record of 50 major horses for not a lot of money.
So, Jeff, I got a story for you. I'm a big proponent of, and I talk about this on the show pretty often, that we're exactly where we're supposed to be at the right time, physically. Who knows about the long term or this or that? I'm not talking macro. I mean, my body, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing at this moment, whether I know it or not. So hilarious. What's funny to me, I don't know how funny you'll find it, but so I literally, before I started this interview, maybe an hour ago, I get a call from one of my buddies who flew in from Miami pretty randomly. And he says, "Hey, Adam, you want to go to the horse races on Sunday?" And I'm like, "Sure, I like to go." Man, I haven't been to a horse race in 6 years minimum. And I didn't even know this person had ever gone to a horse race in their life. So I'm pretty excited. And then I get to talk a full day. I just enjoy it. I forgot how much I enjoyed. And then I got the opportunity to go, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going. That'll be fun. So it
is fun.
It's a great
know
time.
What? I say, bet $2 on each race, and you'll see how much more interesting it gets. There's a million funny films and funny stories about horse racing, really. One of my favorite lines is, "It was a great day at the track. I broke even, and I needed the money."
There you go. I'll take it. So Jeff, man, first off, this has been a pleasure having you on the show today to talk to an expert who's been in the game this long and really a pioneer. I can't when you told me when you're getting these chips done in the early days, late 70s or roughly that time period, that's insane to me. I love it, and I love that you've been on this track and figuring it out. If somebody's listening to this and if they want to connect or follow up or just learn more about your programs or your work, how do they do that?
Well, they can go on the internet to EQB, like Echo Queen Bravo, EQB.FYI, no .com. If you do EQB.com, you'll get a bank in Canada. We're EQB.FYI, and it pretty much tells the whole story. There's links to contact us You can download copies of our extensive published research in major scientific journals and lots of data. There's links to podcasts where we're interviewed and go into detail about what we do and how we do it. And you can call us, and we'll give you references, and we'll just talk horses. I love horses. I love the races, but I also love the farm. I love it when the babies are born and they're running around out in the countryside with deer in the pasture. There's so much about it, from the animal to the farms to the racetrack to the people. A lot of the people are just characters, and they're fun to be around. They're passionate. It's not a cubicle in the Citibank in Manhattan.
Thank God.
This is where I
love it. Oh, well, thanks again, Jeff. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. Each and every day, we're bringing you new content, new ideas, hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way on your journey as well. So, again, hit that subscribe or follow. And, Jeff, again, man, appreciate you coming to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.